All right, so let's talk about the warm-up. It was Josh Johnson performing stand-up on Jimmy Fallon. Hope you like that bit. I really like it. I laugh a lot every time I see it. And I wanted to point out that comedians a lot of times are making an argument through their comedy about something. They kind of look at something that's kind of crazy in life, observe it, and then part of the humor is pointing out how crazy or unrealistic this is or absurd it is that we do this thing. So kind of keep that in mind as you're watching comedians. A lot of them are building arguments, and what arguments are they building? And we're going to answer these questions about Josh Johnson's comedic bit, just like you would about any other writer, because the only reason why we laugh, the only reason why his bit works, his stand-up routine works, is because he's built an argument and he's done these things that other writers always have to do. He gives us an argument, he supports his argument, he organizes it, and then he has some standout sentences or words that really kind of hit some things home. So we're going to look at it just like we look at any other writing text. All right, so the first question is, what is his argument? And his argument is that romantic comedies are not realistic about most people's money situations, right? Like most people do not have the money to run after the person they love and buy $1,000 or more plane ticket to go to Australia. And then also take the time off of work and all the other obligations that they have. Like most people just don't have that opportunity or luxury to do that. And he's pointing that out. He's like, these people aren't like me. They aren't like you, right? They're not these everyday people, and that's a problem to him. And that's his argument. Okay. All right. How does he support that argument? So he uses a hypothetical because, and the reason why it's a hypothetical is because he doesn't point out a very specific rom com movie plot line. Like he doesn't point out You've Got Mail or When Harry Met Sally, or gosh, I wish I had a better example for you guys from your era, but I don't right now. So he doesn't do that. He uses a hypothetical, but it's a really accurate one, right? He uses a formula that a lot of rom-coms follow, which is boy meets girl, boy falls in love with girl, boy messes up, and then boy tries to fix it. And he gives that example, right? So that's what he does. And then he does overstatement or over exaggeration. He's extra, if you will, when he says, when he gives the example at the end about buys a one-way ticket to fly to Australia to keep her from pursuing an incredible life opportunity, right? So, and the funny thing is that isn't even like a huge exaggeration because a lot of the movies follow that plot line. Like something crazy happens at the end where the guy swoops in and try to make everything better, and that's part of it. Like he uses overstatement, that crazy example, right? That extra example, to point out how extra rom-coms are and what happens in their plot events as well. So that's a cool little play he does there. Okay, how does he organize his argument? So he starts by defining the typical formula of rom-coms, right? So he's going to give us a definition that we're working with, that they all follow this plot line: boy meets girl, boy falls in love with girl, boy messes up, and then he goes to the lengths of a million to fix it and be with her and buys a plane ticket and all that. All right. But in that, he also shows us there's a problem. It's a problem that these movies don't look like our lives, right? So he gives us a definition, or he gives us a problem, then he gives us a definition to prove that that is true and an example, and then he offers us a solution at the end. So he tells us, here, I wish there would be more realistic rom-coms, and here's how they can do it. And he gives us a scenario that would be more realistic at the end, right? Where they can't break up because they signed a lease together and now they're stuck in this apartment together for 6 months, which is another little funny piece. All right. So what sentences stand out to you and what is the effect of those sentences? So now we're going to look at the syntax of his comedy. Like, how does the words he uses and the sentences he uses really make the joke work? Okay. So the syntax is just the sentence structure. Okay, so syntax sounds fancy, but it's just sentence structure. And you might have pointed out a lot of things, like maybe the joke about taking the window seat. That was pretty great. But what really stood out to me, because I'm a nerdy English person, is the boy meets girl, boy falls in love with girl, boy messes up. And then he gives this really long sentence here about how it works. And the reason why is because he's doing parallel structure. And he does it again later. And that sounds really fancy. And if you don't know what that means, you've never heard that before, that's okay. That's what I'm here for. It's your teacher here for, to kind of give you this this language and this new thing to look for in your writing. So, parallel structure simply means that the writer is going to use the same pattern of words to show that two or more ideas are at the same level of importance or very similar. Okay. Parallel means kind of equal, right? Or going in the same direction. And parallel structure in writing means kind of the same thing. It's going to be equal, it's going to be overall the same level of words going on. So, boy meets girl, really short sentence. Boy falls in love with girl. He uses a lot of the same words, tries to keep the sentence as short as possible. Boy messes up, still starts with boy, keeps it really short, still talking about the same thing. All these things are pretty equal. And you might even want to point out this one's a little longer. So, maybe this is the most important thing, right? If we're talking about parallel structure and things being equal. But then he breaks the parallel structure and he gives this really, really long sentence here about what happens after that. Okay. And that's for effect. That's the joke, right? That's when the joke happens. He's setting you up with this parallel structure. You think you know what's going to happen next. Boy meets girl, boy falls in love with girl, boy messes up. You think it's going to be another really short sentence about boy makes up with girl and they live happily ever after, right? But no, because you're expecting that, he goes the opposite direction, gives you a really long sentence, really exaggerated, lots and lots of words, and that's why you laugh. That's what makes this joke funny. And what's really cool about him, and what makes him a really sophisticated and smart comedian, is he does this twice. He does like double parallel structure. I don't know, parallel structure squared. I don't know what it's called. I'm making this stuff up right now, but he says he does it again. Boy meets girl. Boy falls in love with girl. Boy messes it up. Word for word, right? Same beat. And then for his solution, when he's telling you how to make them better, how to make them more realistic, boy moves out, finds an infinite passion. They signed a lease, right? He goes back to that really long extended thing again, or extended syntax again, extended sentence structure. Um, and it works this time doubly because we're kind of expecting it a little bit. Like we're kind of like, oh, is he going to do that again? And what is he going to say this time that's going to make us laugh? So the first time it's really unexpected, and that's part of what makes us laugh. Also, it's the content of the sentence, right? And the second time, what makes us laugh is that we're kind of expecting the joke to happen. So as we look at the next piece, you might want to be thinking in your head about overstatement, parallel structure, and even if you're not thinking about those things, that's way too much. Just think about the fact that comedians are like any other writers. They're going to have an argument or a thesis or a point that they're trying to make, and they're going to develop that with examples and other ways to prove that they're right, and then they're going to organize it in a way that makes sense, that is interesting to us. And they're going to use interesting word choice and sentence structure or syntax in order to drive that point home and make them unique and show their voice. All right. So keep that in mind as we keep reading and working with texts in this unit.